Downstairs. He's ready to go.
Don't take that personal, Pat.
As long as his dad didn't run down there with him.
Yeah.
At this time. It's at 6 o'clock on Thursday nights. It's also in Genesis, and Genesis, I think, is one of the most important books of the Bible.
Yep.
And the story of Joseph and his amazing Technicolor life takes up 1/4 of the book. So we're going to look at Genesis 37, verses 1 through 11 today in your Bible, if you want to turn there. A lot of today's message will actually be taken right out of this, so you can kind of camp there today and just read along as we go through it. It's Genesis 37. If you don't have a Bible, there's some in the space in front of you, or you can share with the person next to you. God's road to success is like that song by the Beatles, and I see Willie wore a Beatles shirt today. Thank you for that. The song is called "A Long and Winding Road." Do you remember that song?
Yeah.
By the Beatles. You can't really appreciate Joseph's story, this first part that we're going to read, without a synopsis of his entire life. So, when Joseph was only 17, he was so hated by his brothers that they beat him up and they sold him into slavery. And then they lied to their dad, and they told their dad that a wild animal had killed him. Then Joseph was taken to Egypt. He became a household servant of a man named Potiphar. Potiphar's wife tried to seduce Joseph. She kept trying to seduce Joseph, and when he refused, she accused him of sexually molesting her, and so he ended up in prison. While in jail, Joseph interpreted the dreams of a couple of his fellow inmates, and years later, Pharaoh brought him up out of jail to explain one of his nightmares, and we fast forward to the end of his life. Joseph actually ended up as the prime minister of Egypt, the second most powerful man in the world's only superpower at that time. So you can see it's kind of a long and winding road that Joseph took to get there. And God has a road of success for you, and your main goal in life should be following that road. Now, but in order to get on God's road to success, you have to embrace the correct definition of success. So success is not retiring early with a lot of money. Success is not having a nice home with 2 cars in the garage. Success is not advancing to the top of the ladder at your corporation. Learn. So it's not a destination, it's a process to be learned. But before you can proceed far down God's road of success, He may have to point out some things in your life that are going to slow you down. That's why I called this message, you can see on the front of your bulletin there, speed bumps, right? I don't know, when Joseph was a teen, he had some attitudes in his life that had to be changed. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, that's his brothers, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him. Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright, and behold, your sheaves stood round about, and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it to his brothers, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars, I and thy mother and thy brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to thee to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the same. All right. I don't really like speed bumps myself because I like to drive fast, and will intentionally put speed bumps in your pathway to get your attention. Mm-hmm. He's trying to get us to slow down and learn something important that he wants to teach us. And so without a doubt, right, Joseph was a great servant of God, but there were some attitudes in his life that God had to remove before he could fully bless him. I was reading about some commentary on this message, and there's a Dr. Kim Gillian observed this. Said Joseph at the age of 17 was not the humble, likable, mild-mannered young man that we sometimes picture. He was more likely a pompous, arrogant, conniving, spoiled brat. He was little Lord Fauntleroy, with full puffy sleeves to match his full puffy ego. His father liked him best, and he rubbed it in all of his brothers' faces. No wonder they were jealous of him. No wonder they schemed against him. If he had been my kid brother, I'd have been tempted to throw him down the well too. So in this passage that we just read, we can find 3 speed bumps, dangerous attitudes that were in Joseph's young life, and they may be present in your life as well. We can read about the first one in verse 2. It says, Joseph was a young man of 17. While he was tending the flocks with his brothers, he brought their father a bad report about them. And from this, it says evil report in the King James Version, but that basically means a bad report. So success lesson number 1 for us. You may see the faults of others, but you don't have to declare them. Right? You may see faults in other people, but that doesn't mean you have to declare them. Joseph came home, right? He's tending the sheep with his brothers. And he complained to his father about his brothers. And like I said, that word evil report in verse 2 is actually the Hebrew word for slander. So he slandered his brothers. Without a doubt, right? His brothers probably had faults. We all have faults. Is that correct? If you do have faults in your life, raise your hand. Okay, I see there. If you didn't raise your hand, you're a liar. Now you have a fault. So there you go. We shall see in this next lesson, though, right? Rather than talking to them about their faults, though, Joseph goes running to his papa, right? He sounds kind of like a spoiled kid who says, I'm telling on you, right? And so he runs and tells to his mom or his dad. So the first speed bump that may slow you down on God's road to success is this, a critical attitude. A critical attitude. My mother used to tell me, your mother probably told you this too, if you can't say something nice about someone, don't say anything at all. Yeah, there you go. Some people knew what I was saying there. Probably the mother lining. And you've heard the expression, when life hands you lemonade, I'm sorry, I messed that up. When life hands you lemons, make lemonade, right? Life really doesn't give out lemons, but it's critical people with sour, acidic attitudes who are always passing out verbal lemons, right? And so you got to be careful when you make lemonade because they'll spit in your lemonade, right? Their favorite exercise is jumping to conclusions and running people down. Here's the thing that you have to think about. Are you over? The preacher's sermon was boring. He spoke too long. The music was too loud. I didn't like the songs. The pew was hard. The people were unfriendly. And his 10-year-old son, who was in the back seat, who had watched his dad during the offering and said, but you got to admit, Dad, it was a pretty good show for a quarter. Wrongs. Yeah. That means you don't make a list, right, of what your significant other or someone in your life did wrong, and then 10 years down the road, you're like, well, remember July 2nd, 1982, when you did this to me, right? We don't want to do that. Number 2, you may receive medals, but you don't have to wear them. What does that mean? My first memory of Joseph comes from this faithful Sunday school teacher I had. Taught about Joseph's coat, right? It was more than just colorful. How would you feel if your dad, and he wasn't the logical choice of an heir, but remember his father Jacob had grabbed the birthright from his older brother Esau, and no wonder the brothers were jealous of Joseph, right? Because it brings us to the second speed bump Joseph had to overcome. A conceited attitude. It's clear Joseph flaunted that robe, one for us to learn. There's a scriptural principle here that every follower of Jesus must learn. Here's the principle. The way up is down, and the way down is up. Right? Maybe you can understand it better in the words of Jesus. He said, for whoever exalts himself, God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. The way up is down. See, when you promote yourself in life, right, don't be surprised if God resists you at the expense of others. We all know some kids who need more love, or some kids receive more love than others sometimes. but learn from Jacob. You can actually harm your child if you show more preference of one than another. And you may be the one building a huge speed bump on their road to success. So you want your kids to be successful. We all do, right? So we don't want to put a speed bump in front of them that we can avoid. So do not show favoritism to one of your kids. We all know that a spoiled child becomes what? A spoiled teenager. And unless something changes, they grow into what? A spoiled adult. Number 3, you may have lofty dreams for yourself, but you don't always have to share them. Joseph had 2 dreams that would make him a great man. He believed they would, right? He had these dreams. When he shared the first dreams, what happened with his brothers? They hated him even more, right? They were like, are you kidding me? And then when he shared the second dream, even his father rebuked him. We shouldn't fault the dreams because one of them came true, right? His mistake was sharing the dream. It's easy to identify this third speed bump on your road to success. And this is one that some of us carry into adulthood. It's a self-centered attitude. We don't want to have a self-centered attitude. In both dreams, what was Joseph saying here? He was the center, and what? Everyone else was what? Bowing down to him, right? He said, everyone's bowing down to me. Were these dreams from God? The Bible doesn't really say here. The first dream did come true, though, because years later, his brothers would bow down before him, even without recognizing who he was. But it's difficult to believe that God gave Joseph the second dream because God never errs. And how could Joseph's mother bow down before him? Because she had died years earlier, giving birth to Joseph's younger brother, Benjamin. So, everyone should have dreams and aspirations. We love that, right? We love people. We love our kids to have dreams. We love them to have aspirations. But if your dream involves the promotion of self, you need to examine your own motives. And you don't have to tell your dreams to all the others, right? As a 17-year-old, Joseph had these visions of greatness for himself. And when he shared the dreams with his brothers, it was like pouring gasoline, right, on the smoldering fire of their animosity towards him. He was just kind of poking them, provoking them. And God cannot bless you if you are full of self.
Yeah.
When we are all born, we are by nature egocentric people. That's just how it is, right? Turn to the person next to you and say, I'm sorry, but you are selfish.
I'm not saying that.
I'm sorry, but you are selfish, right? No one wants to hear that, right? We don't want to hear that, but we're all selfish in a certain way. Right? My wife had no problem saying that to me as I looked over there. Your teeth, hopefully, right? When you brush your teeth, I know there's a mirror in front of you, so there you go. Everyone in our universe revolves around us, right? Our thoughts, our needs, our feelings. When we're hungry, we cry out for food. When we're angry, we cry out for justice. When we're mad, we strike out in anger. This is when we're younger, right? As we grow older, we learn there are other people in our universe. But it's easy to maintain our egocentricity. As we grow older still, we learn that the Bible claims that there is one God who is our creator, and he must sit on the throne of our personal universe. God must sit on that throne. Just as he rules over the actual universe, right? Becoming a child of God involves replacing self with God at the center of your personal universe. In her book, The Christian Secret to a Happy Life, Hannah Whitewall Smith wrote this. She said, the greatest burden we have to carry in life is self. The greatest thing we have to manage is self. Indeed, we must all learn that the secret to joy in life is found in the priority of those 3 letters. Jesus, others, yourself. Joy right there. Jesus, others, then yourself. So what road are you on right now? It's a question for you this morning. It says here, there's a road right that seems right to man, but leads to what? Destruction. That's the wide road, the popular road, the easy road. But Jesus said there was a narrow gate and a narrow road that leads to real life. And only a few people are on it, he said. Joseph got on that right road. He didn't start out on the right road, but he got on that right road. Are you on God's road to success? Once you get on it, don't think it's going to be a smooth ride, right? You may encounter some pesky speed bumps. God is trying to teach you some important lessons. He's actually trying to teach you some important lessons today. Every day of your life, God is in the process of molding you, of forming you, if you are following him, into what? Into being more like his son, into his perfect son. So God is trying to get you to grow every day of your life, trying to get you to learn some lessons. Do you have a critical spirit? That's one of the questions you might ask yourself this following week here. Do you see faults in others? And if you do you declare them right away? Or do you keep those thoughts to yourself and maybe talk to them about it? Second one is this, that I want you to think about this week. Are you conceited? Some of us are, right? Some of us. When we take the focus off of ourselves and we stop being so self-centered and obsessed with self, our lives will change. And the same thing happened to Joseph. But it took this pit experience and this prison experience. But finally, Joseph took his eyes off himself and started thinking of others. How many of you would rather start doing that? Saying to yourself, well, I don't see God's blessings in my life, Pastor. I don't really see God moving in my life. Do nothing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with ambition, right? We all have some type of ambition in our life. If our ambition is to follow God, that's the best thing, that ambition we can have. However, selfish ambition and vain conceit will only produce pain in your life. A likeness of men. Right? I mean, Jesus is up there on his throne with God, right? Has all these things. We've seen pictures of Jesus in his glory. People have described that. Isaiah described it. We talked about it the other week, right? How he's up there and he's got this flowing robe and he's glowing. In Revelation, he actually has fire that comes out of his mouth, right? People are all saying, oh, I can't wait till Jesus comes back. Are you really that excited about it? Jesus is coming back with fire coming out of his mouth, okay? So get your life together. Right? Yeah. Let's be honest here, right? Go, oh, it's beautiful. Jesus is going to come back. I don't want to go through puberty, God, right? I don't really want to have someone change my diaper. Just make me a man of like 20, 22. Yeah. You know, he could have done that. God could do that, right? But he said, no, make me a baby, right? Yeah. He was formed in Mary's womb. Came out as a baby, was treated as a baby, grew up, right? Loved him. He gave up everything that he had in heaven. Every power that he had, he gave that up to become a man. He humbled, it says, and it goes on, it says, and being found in fashion as a man, right? He humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. I don't know if you know anything about Rome back in those days, but the death on the cross was considered like the lowest form of death that you could have. It was for criminals. It was for the most hardened criminals, right? It was the worst way to die in that society, by being hung on a cross. And so the worst way that someone could die, right, would be to be hung on a cross for the crimes that they committed. Did Jesus commit any crimes? No, he didn't. He was a perfect human being. He lived a perfect life. Yet he knew that he was going to suffer death on a cross, and he gave up everything he had willingly to die for you. Like Joseph, Jesus had a beautiful robe. It was the robe of his divinity, his equality with God. But he didn't strut around showing off his divinity, even when he was here on earth. He laid it aside and became one of us. And it wasn't just a dream he had, right?